Thank you, Stephen. If I were half the writer you are, I'd be much more eloquent about what that speech meant to me. We'll talk later. Hi, everyone. It's such an honor to be on this stage with such accomplished authors. And I have to say, it's so incredible to be in a room full of so many friendly and familiar faces, especially after all this time. Usually when I'm asked to speak, it's to celebrate an author and a book I love. It turns out it's much harder to try to encapsulate what the last 27 years of my life as an editor has been. Every time I sat down to write this speech, in fact, my thoughts kept going back to a random conversation I had with my father many years ago. I was having a particularly tough time at work, so I was complaining to him. And I should be very careful right now because a lot of my former publishers are in this room. He listened, and then he chuckled in that quiet way of his, and he said, "Sally, you're not supposed to like your job. You have to keep going." So here's a little bit about my dad. He grew up during war and occupation in Korea, and when this country opened up its immigration doors, he landed at the University of Kansas, of all places, in 1969, with $60 in his pocket. He never told us directly about the hardships and the racism he experienced. Those things I gleaned in the in-between spaces of his funny stories about 13 foreign students sharing a one-bedroom apartment, eating and sleeping in shifts because there wasn't enough space. Because why dwell on those things? He felt so lucky, just so lucky to be here at all. After studying architecture, he moved to LA and he went to look for his first job. He rode the public bus around the city, armed only with a map and the newspaper want ads. And he finally did get his first job at a firm called Orbit Industries, but only after he showed up 3 days in a row, even though they kept turning him away. They let him take a draftsman's test, which he aced, and they hired him on the spot. And to celebrate, he walked down the street to a local diner, and he treated himself to a precious Coca-Cola. I'm sorry. This is all to say that to my dad, work was something to be endured. So my path to publishing was anything but charmed, and truly those are stories for another speech. But suffice it to say, I had my own version of my dad's bus rides around the city. There was no one really like me in publishing back then, especially editorial. My background and my perspectives weren't exactly considered assets. I felt lucky just to be here. So I took it upon myself to quiet my voice. I concentrated instead on those dualities of being a good editor, being introverted enough where you could wrestle with the manuscript for hours on end, extroverted enough so that you could be that ultimate champion for that manuscript. But now I know that it takes much more than those things to be a good editor. I don't need to underline what a tough time it's been for all of us these past few years, but particularly as the national conversation opened up much deeper wounds and much needed reconciliations, I know a lot of us wondered what our roles were, how we could affect change. We marched, we donated, we reached out, and we listened. And then I realized, maybe for the first time, that the work we do, our everyday work, is our way of affecting change. We work through these challenges by doing the things that we are best skilled to do, which is to find new voices and amplify them. Publish books that reflect a part of ourselves and so many others back into the world. Luck is success or failure based on chance and not as a result of your own actions. By saying I'm lucky just to have a seat at the table frees me from any responsibility for what to do with that seat. In order to amplify the voices of others, I know that I have to amplify my own. Otherwise, it would be a disservice to all the wonderful books and all the wonderful writers I've been fortunate enough to work with. And it would be a disservice to my father and his bus rides around the city, to his enduring all those things, so that one day his daughter too could endure, to keep going, and have a job that she not only likes, but loves. And slowly, bird by bird, book by book, it turns out that I didn't quiet my voice at all. We lost my father exactly a year ago, and I know that he would have loved to have been in this room with us tonight. So I'm really, really grateful for everyone to be here and to celebrate. I want to thank poets and writers for this absolute honor and for all the important work that you do. I know this is called the Editor's Award, but everyone knows that an editor is only as good as the publishing teams that work alongside her and sweat all the details. So that's art, production, publicity, marketing, subrights, sales, everyone. Thank you to the Putnam team, particularly Alexis Welby, Ashley McClay, Ivan Held, Allison Dobson, and to my mentors, Susan Moldow, who's back there somewhere, from whom I learned something every single day, and most certainly Madeline McIntosh. And of course, my brilliant authors, some of whom are here tonight and who came as far away as London. Special thank yous to my family who came from California, and especially my mom, my #1 cheerleader, who reads every single book I publish, even the scary ones. And to my children who often get a little bit neglected because there's always a manuscript to tend to, but who turned out pretty terrific anyway. I actually practiced this speech in front of them, and they said it was important that I tell you their names. So, thank you, Olive and Harry. One more. And to my patient husband, who 25 years ago sold all of his earthly belongings, packed 2 duffel bags to move across the country with me, because he believed I could long before I did. And he only sometimes complains still about the hundreds of books and tote bags that crowd our lives. Thank you all.
One more time for Sally, everyone.